It's not that more people support Trump than supported Trump in 2020 or even 2016. I would say it's more people showed up to support Trump and less people showed up to support Kamala Harris. I think there's a number of reasons for that as well.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Discourse Debrief. This is episode 8 now?
Yep.
Damn. But episode 8, coming to a close of the semester, but we still got a lot of things to talk about. Real quick, just to get into some announcements, pretty much only one big one. On December 3rd, 6:30 in the Kiva Auditorium down the Student Union, Logan and I are going to be debating two fellow interns on what the purpose of student protests is and what it should be. Hopefully it'll be really interesting. We'll have some food. Come stop by and vote on who you think has the better argument. But
Us.
It'd probably be us. But either way, it'll be really interesting. Today, it's Logan's topic, and we do have a special guest on today, very special guest. Robert, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Robert Martin. I'm a political science major at the university. I'm a future law student, professional yapper, and that's pretty much all there is to know about me.
Sounds like the perfect guest to have on our show. But yeah, can you think of any other announcements or things?
When is Maddie and Sohan doing the next podcast?
I
think that's next week, actually.
I think they're recording it next week. Not sure when it'll go up. We will have an additional podcast for our other internship podcast coming out, talking about that topic for our debate coming in December, student protests. That should be really fun and interesting, too. It's a different kind of style than ours, but definitely still entertaining and insightful.
Yeah.
But I think we're ready.
That's all I could think of. So
lay it on us, Logan. What are we yapping about today?
So the general topic today is America doomed? All right.
Ooh.
And we're going to begin with going around. What are your immediate thoughts on this question? And Peyton, we'll start with you, and we'll wrap around to me.
Sure. I'm gonna get philosophical with it. Okay. Terms, words. We imply a lot of things when we use words. So like America. What does America mean? Doomed. What does doomed mean? Because I think it could be argued right now that both sides of the political spectrum in America have very different ideas of what America is and what doomed means. For them, they're probably thinking this is great, and for other people, including myself, not so much. I can't really know right now until Trump's in there and we start seeing what's going to happen. But given what I've seen with the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, some other things, I'm definitely worried. Let's put it that way. But what do you think, Martin?
Yeah, I think that's a good analysis. I would say doomed, maybe not, but I do think that you could say that American politics have changed. And like you can't be ignorant of the fact that they've changed beyond a point where it's no longer the party of the 2000s or the 80s. You see that the Republican Party figured out that change rather quickly. The Democrat Party is still figuring that out. So I think that we will see a lot of chaos. But I don't know about doomed.
Okay. So my general thoughts is, so I'm basing it off the fact that either half the country just elected fascist or the other half thinks that they elected a fascist. Either way, kind of cooked. So
yeah,
that's just kind of my general thoughts, but we'll obviously get it more into the details on that. So purely speaking about the election, and on this topic of like what path America's going down, what do you kind of see as some possibilities over the next 4 years?
I'm going to start with you because I know you probably know more than me.
What path America's going down the next 4 years?
Yeah, just in general.
In general, I think that we can see it's kind of similar to 2016 in the way that we'll see like a rise in populism, both left-wing and right-wing. I mean, we saw that in 2020 they tried to platform Bernie Sanders for the presidential candidate. And that's obviously left-wing populism, and that was to combat right-wing populism. I think we'll definitely see a lot of that. But also, I mean, we see that Donald Trump kind of has like his agenda all set out pretty much. And you can see that by his picks for his cabinet. He doesn't have to worry about re-election. So he can pick whoever he wants pretty much. We got Marco Rubio, we got Matt Gaetz, which is crazy. We got the DOGE department, like Peyton mentioned. So, yeah, I think that in the next 4 years we'll see like Trump, but like 2016 Trump, but more of what he wants because he doesn't have to worry about the party or, getting reelected again.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think he definitely learned his lesson from the 2016 term of, you can pick people, But if they don't agree with you, then they will give you trouble in the White House. And Trump learned that lesson, and now he's going in with very specific picks to avoid that. And I think, a lot of what was thrown around, especially relating to the 2021 Jan 6th electorate plot or whatever, there's this phrase, the guardrails held, now they're fully responsible in shaping the guardrails in such a way that's going to be more conducive to them and the people that matter to them. And I don't think that's going to be us or the average American, but I don't know as much about politics as you two, so
Right.
y'all are going to be teaching me more today.
So my thoughts, I guess I'm kind of thinking more from an economic standpoint. So the whole Biden administration, their policies, they set us up fairly well for getting out of the pandemic, almost recession, not quite a recession time period. And they've set us up for another kind of Obama period where we're going to be doing pretty dang well. And then, once again, a Republican president's going to come in and probably take credit for a lot of things. So, like the infrastructure bill, I know there's a lot of things that are slated to be developed in like 2026, and that was as a result of Biden's policies. I anticipate Trump will take credit for that, as he tends to do. And then there's a very good chance that he completely flattens that growth if he actually deports however many millions of people, if he actually tariffs however much percent on like everything. There's a very good chance that he just stomps out any potential growth that we had coming out of the pandemic. So from an economic standpoint, that's kind of my thoughts. But this is all dependent on if Trump actually goes through with what he says, which, as we know, is not exactly in character for him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's shift to a different topic. The Supreme Court. He's going to have a chance to probably replace at least two justices and have them obviously in their office for many, many years. So what are your kind of thoughts on that, especially with the recent, not many people are in favor of the Supreme Court?
Yeah, Supreme Court's goofy. I know it has good reasons for existing, and it's probably good that people are in there for a long time, although I don't know how I feel about being in there for life. That would be something I'd have to consult the experts on, get their opinions, a.k.a. you two. But yeah, it's definitely worrying. I mean, over the past 4 years, we've seen some wild decisions brought down by the Supreme Court. Presidential immunity is just, maybe that's something we can get into, but that seems a little absurd to me. No, actually very absurd to me. And knowing that Trump slowly but surely, the same way he's doing it with like his cabinet, he's getting people in there who he knows will reliably support him. It just seems like these guardrails that people keep referring to are getting weaker. And I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know what we can do about that, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, the thing about the Supreme Court, like the reasoning behind people being appointed for life was that it would be apolitical.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like a political position. You're there to make, decisions based on the Constitution. But obviously, I don't think we've been seeing that. I think we've been seeing exactly the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it doesn't really matter if he appoints two more people to the Supreme Court because he already has the conservative majority on the Supreme Court.
Right.
And we've definitely seen that the last 4 years. Like even though we had the Democrat Senate and we had a Democratic president, despite that, we still had Roe v. Wade strucken down.
Right.
We still have presidential immunity and all of these other, progressive cases that were lost in the Supreme Court.
Chevron was a big one, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, like with the Supreme Court, it's more than just, he already has a majority. It's a matter of like, how long will the majority remain there? Because if he can replace two members, they can be in there for
Definitely.
God knows how long. I mean,
yeah. I think he was talking about, I remember seeing this, that he wants to put younger judges on there.
Mhm.
I mean, and he already has put some younger ones on there, but he's talking
Right. Yeah.
even younger, so that way they have such a long time to be on there, which begs the question, like, should there be a Supreme Court reform? And, it's obviously not what the founders intended for there to be a reform where the judges aren't on there permanently, but with how this court's being used, maybe that's something to be talked about.
Yeah, they also weren't thinking they would turn political.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know when Biden initially dropped out, one of the first things he said was he was going to focus on Supreme Court or just court reform. So I don't know if we'll see any fruit with that. But yeah, Peyton, any thoughts?
Well, I think just like a broader theme, I know you mentioned it, this idea of they're supposed to just represent the Constitution, and now it's becoming far more of an interpretation. I've seen it floated that our current Supreme Court is the biggest like living Constitution like group of all time. So like what do we make of this? Like is the country's older than it was when the Constitution was made, and I do think the Constitution is still one of the greatest documents ever made, and it's worked very well. But to what extent, on either political side, should we like consider this idea of a living Constitution, or should there be any interpretation at all? And if there shouldn't be, then how do we avoid what we have in the Supreme Court now in the future?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right, and there are these two ideas. I wouldn't say philosophies necessarily, but it's called judicial restraint and judicial activism. And usually a judge kind of sticks to one of them. Very rarely will you see, especially now, will you see them float in between. So obviously judicial restraint is, let the decision stand, really not trying to make any changes unless absolutely necessary. Judicial activism is, you're going out there looking for stuff to change for whatever reason. And I think we've obviously seen more judicial activism, especially in the recent years. Typically that's been a trait more common with like more progressive judges, and now we're seeing that across all aisles. So yeah, and there's instances where activism isn't a bad thing, obviously, but especially when it comes to like constitutional things and like Chevron, for an example, it's very important. It's probably better just to let it be. But yeah, you bring up a good point, and the Constitution isn't perfect. That's why we have the Supreme Court in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So, You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely think that, like, usually we would see progressive judges be the activists, the judicial activists in the courts, and usually people don't have as much of a problem with that. The problem is that when you get conservative judges that are judicial activists, then people start to have more of a problem with that, because when a progressive judge is a judicial activist in a court, they are typically, giving more rights, more freedoms. Whether or not people agree with those freedoms, those rights, like abortion, is another topic. But typically a progressive judge is giving out more rights. A conservative judge is rolling those back and saying, like, oh, this is too far, this is beyond the pale. Right. And so people are more of a fan of progressive judges than conservative judges usually. And I think that we're seeing that even now. Like, if you look at the election, it's not that progressive policies are unelectable, because in Arizona, where Trump won, we still passed abortion.
Right. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's all very good points. Okay, so moving on, kind of reining back to the election itself. What's kind of your analysis on how did we get to this point where we had a Trump term, we saw what happened, we voted him out. Unfortunately, the pandemic kind of screwed things up for the Dems, I think at least. And now we're going back to Trump. How do you kind of make sense of this in your guys' head?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of reasons. You can't really point to one thing for this kind of a shift. I think there are some macro reasons and there are some more abstract reasons. So one macro one that I subscribe to is this idea of, like, even if on paper the Biden economy is actually pretty good, really good for being compared to the rest of the world, prices are still high or higher than people would expect. And so people see inflation and go, oh, that's Biden's fault, we should change. Maybe saw Kamala as being too similar to Biden and figured, well, even if Trump's a dubious figure, change is better than nothing in their head. So that's one, like, macro idea. A like more abstract idea I subscribe to is just the fact, and we've mentioned this a little bit, is that most Americans just don't know much about anything. I wouldn't call them stupid or anything. It's just this matter of access to information. Like, I'm very thankful to have taken a government class in high school, but it was an AP class, and I don't know how required those are for other curriculums. Yeah, exactly. And so I think, even today, like, I've seen things floated that the average American adult can only read up to, like, a 5th grade reading level, let alone comprehend, name the 3 branches of government or, like, what they're supposed to do. And I think that when people lack that understanding, we get people like Trump who, when they're obviously to people who kind of understand what's going on, kind of bending the rules, messing with the intentions of the systems of government. People don't know about that, and so they don't care about it. And so I think because people just don't know what's going on, the lefties kind of go about it in their own way that isn't perfect, and I guess we can talk about where the Democratic Party failed
Sure.
later. But the Conservative Party also just doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like you saw after the election, like search results, search frequency for like what's a tariff after the election just spiked.
Or like who's running for president.
Yeah, exactly.
Was
Or like
insane.
when did Biden drop out? And like, how do you not know this? Why is this being searched? Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. People are very uninformed.
Yeah, I would like to push back a little. I don't think it's mostly on the fault of the people, though. I mean, obviously we have a terrible education system in the United States. I'm just like, that's just the truth of it. I took the same government class that Peyton did, and it's definitely not the most accessible government class or school that we went to in the entire world. But overall, our education system is atrocious. So obviously you can point to like people are uneducated, they don't know what's going on. I would also say that in this election, you could see that polls showed that more people were looking up information than before. So if anything, that shows more of a interest in the election. I think the main problem is the Democratic Party forgot the principles of democracy. They didn't appeal to the people, and they lost. And there's several, causes for that. The economy being, number one. That was the most important thing. Americans vote with their pocketbook, right? Number two is that, and it kind of has to do with the economy, is Harris didn't distinguish herself from Biden. Even though she said, we're going to turn a new page, she still kept Biden close. And so she had that legacy following her around. And obviously, that's a hard thing to overcome, but she didn't really try to overcome it. So I would say that, it is the fault of the people for being uneducated, but it's more the fault that the Democratic Party forgot that, people vote, and they need to appeal to people. And they more appealed to, like, middle-class suburban voters trying to win people over from the Republican Party.
Yeah.
The only real difference we saw that Harris said was that she was going to appoint a Republican to her cabinet, which isn't really like who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, obviously, electoral strategies vary from person to person, but it is just like a common trope of Democrats that they are horrible about educating people on what their policies actually do.
Yeah.
I mean, take the economy, for example. Like, yes, inflation is an issue. Yes, prices are high, but they'd be a lot worse if, the Biden administration wasn't doing what they were doing. And they did not do a very good job of getting that point across, for sure. Yeah. And on the economy, what's kind of we've brought up education as an issue, but the solution to me is not clear, or if there is one, it's like we're never going to be able to do that. So what do you guys see as steps we can take to, I guess, make sure the electorate is more educated, or at least aware of, what's actually going on, what these presidencies are actually doing, what they're actually saying they're going to do, et cetera. What do you see? What can we do?
I'll let you go first.
On a national level, I would say almost nothing. I think the fact that we live in a federal system kind of limits our choices for education about our political system. Also, the fact that we are basically fighting 300 years of, not being educated about how politics works in the country. I mean, like other countries that became democracies, like France, for example, they became democracies through revolution. And so people are already going to be more active in politics.
Sure.
Also, we're, a large, very large country with a lot of people. On a local level, though, I think that students are the most important thing for educating others about politics. Like, obviously, we don't know everything. There's a lot we don't know. But there's a lot we do know, and the fact that we go to a university means that we're already interested in learning. And so we should be using that to spread knowledge further.
Yeah, no, 100%. I don't know if this is true, because you said on the national level there's functionally nothing, but I naively believe that, like, if we could get, like, a Democratic candidate who just, like, has Riz, like, I don't know. Like, politics never really interested me much up until, like, maybe, like, probably around college or the first, probably 2020 election. But even, like, growing up, I would hear Obama speak, and I'd be like, wow, this guy, like,
This guy's
he
Riz.
cares. He's a great speaker. And I like to think that, we see it on the conservative side now. Like, sure, populism probably isn't great, but given how far towards that direction the Conservative Party has gone, it might be helpful or a good strategy to have something like that show up on the left, but we'd have to have faith that that person's not doing it for, like, power reasons. It would be, like, to win the electorate over. But I don't even know if that's really a possibility given how fractured the Democratic Party is right now.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. Do you guys think there's a world where mandatory voting would solve any issue?
I think it might make things worse.
How could you even enforce that? Yeah. I like the idea of automatic voter registration, but
I know some
mandatory
countries-
voting, I don't know.
Some countries do have mandatory. I don't know how they actually do it, but I know some countries do it. You said you think it'll make it worse?
I think it'll make things worse because that doesn't solve education about issues. It
Sure.
just solves voting on issues, which, lots of people who are uneducated about our political system just choose not to vote. Although I would say in this election we saw almost the opposite, but I guess that's
Yeah. I guess my thoughts on that, and like Peyton, you mentioned, people who fight their ways to democracies like the French, they're more interested in their elections. So my thoughts would be, okay, if people have to vote, maybe they would be a little bit more interested and actually take the time to, research a little bit. But I can definitely see where that might not be the case, and this last election certainly would be an example of that, maybe.
I guess, if you don't mind, a question I'd like to pose is, if we can attribute any blame per se to the Democratic Party, where do you think, or how do you think the Democratic Party failed in this election? If at all, if it's something we can even blame, or what could they have done better, I guess? What do you guys think on that?
My take, this might be a hot one. My take is they didn't really do much wrong. I think the campaign was pretty good. I think her volunteers, her ground game was exceptional, on par with Obama's back in the day. So I think the campaign wasn't the issue. I think it was just national optics. I think I mentioned to you, I really don't think the party following COVID was ever going to win. What was the stat? 15 million fewer Democrats voted this election for whatever reason. I think that was a number that I saw floated around. So I really just think it's just an issue that goes beyond the party or the candidate itself. And it's just post-COVID, we don't know what the heck's going on. We're kind of just screwed.
Okay.
Yeah, I would disagree with that because I think that one of the biggest missteps was waiting so long for Joe Biden to step down. I mean, we were told that Joe Biden's going to run. I personally didn't believe it. I personally believed he was either going to eat rocks or step down before the election happened, and that turned out to be true. But they waited until she had just over 100 days to campaign, whereas Donald Trump was campaigning for 4 years.
Yeah.
Donald Trump also, say what you will, lots of his voters don't have college degrees, but he still mobilized way more people. It's not that more people support Trump than supported Trump in 2020 or even 2016. I would say it's more people showed up to support Trump and less people showed up to support Kamala Harris. I think there's a number of reasons for that as well. She didn't get local leaders to support her. So like in Pennsylvania, for example, she didn't have the support of local leaders there. And so people in Pennsylvania don't know anything about Kamala Harris because that's just a fact. She's vice president for 4 years. You don't really see much of her or hear much except the fact that, she exists.
Right, yeah.
And so if you don't know about her, you're not going to vote for her. Another thing is that she just failed, like I said, to distinguish herself from Joe Biden. And there's a lot of things that come with that, the economy, foreign policy, all of these things that happened during Joe Biden's term. She never really separated herself from. And so people aren't going to want to vote for 4 more years of that, but they're also not going to want to vote for Trump if you're a Democrat, at least. I believe so.
Right. Yeah, and I guess I'd probably agree. The only thing that it's spark in my mind is she raised a ridiculous amount of money in those however many days. I mean, she, for the time she was given, she did very, very well. And the polling obviously was saying that she had a pretty good shot, and now obviously that was clearly wrong.
Yeah.
That Iowa poll that came out was, wow.
Yeah.
Off by 17 points. Yeah. I mean, there's certainly blame to go around, but from the Biden perspective, what do you even do? I mean,
Cry.
right? I mean, because if you're him, you beat Trump. You're obviously the best option supposedly the best option to run against him again because you've already beat him. So I mean, in that situation, the debate was the only reason he dropped out. I think.
I think he was kind of forced to drop out.
Yeah, he's definitely
Probably.
He definitely. I mean, I feel like if there's party politics for sure happening there.
Yeah.
I feel like if it was decided early on, obviously you're getting older, you won't, we're gonna want you to drop out, or even not even that. If they just held the primaries, which they didn't really. I mean, in some states they were barred completely. In other states they were rushed. You know, some
Right.
states they didn't happen. If they held the Democratic primary, which goes back to like my main point about this election is that the principles of democracy were ignored by the Democratic Party, and then they were punished for it.
Yeah.
One of the biggest like arguments I would have with my conservative, more MAGA family members is I would really try to like articulate just like as close to objective facts we have about January 6th, the electorate plot, all of that, to try and prove this idea of, you know, the democratic processes were being threatened. And that went unchecked, and people don't seem to care. And then the first thing they would always throw at me as well, Kamala Harris did the same thing when she skipped over the primary. And there's a meaningful difference there because at the end of the day, the party system is like a private system, and they can dictate their own how they do that, even if it feels kind of icky.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something that gets thrown about a lot. Although, why was it so late? Was it literally just like the Democratic Party saw his performance and just immediately felt that there's no shot we elect this guy again?
I definitely think
I
that's
guess
what it was.
so. Yeah, and I mean, with what you said about him kind of being forced out, I know a lot of his like what's the word? Donors were like threatening to withdraw aid if he didn't, you know, drop his campaign and like endorse Harris or whatever. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of infighting going on. But then Harris came on, and like everyone was really excited and happy about that. So it just like the DNC convention was like great. I mean, like
Yeah.
I just
I think we had an illusion of it. I mean,
yeah.
like for example, the Teamsters Union didn't endorse Kamala Harris, and they usually endorse every Democratic president, I think, except for Reagan. And the Democratic Party also didn't let the Teamsters Union speak at the DNC, but the Republicans let them speak at the RNC. And they went on like an anti-corporate rant at the RNC, which is a little like wild to see. So there's that. And there's also the fact that she raised so much money, but she spent so much money. Like Donald Trump had less than half of the amount raised that she did. I think it was like 500 million.
I know. I did just see that she had like 30 million in debt despite raising so much.
Despite raising over $1 billion, which is insane to me. Like those are numbers that I can't even comprehend. And so I think we just had this illusion that everyone was so excited because her campaign was probably paying all these celebrities to come on and endorse her.
Sure.
I mean, you know, like if you're a celebrity, you don't want to alienate your base. So you're going to say, okay, I'll be a political candidate, like Taylor Swift, publicly endorsing her.
In like one post.
Yeah.
And never saying why or anything.
And then all of at her rallies, she would have like Eminem on, for example.
God.
So, and like, you know, like all these conservative millennials that listen to Eminem are probably not going to be too jazzed about him endorsing Kamala Harris.
Right.
So he's like, if you pay me, I would love to do that. That's at least what I think happened.
Sure.
I do think there's another interesting aspect of the celebrity idea, the online space for Democratic, or I should just say left, I don't know, pundits, I guess, is very progressive and not quite in line with the capital L liberal side, center left that the Democratic Party is actually trying to put up and win with. So you'd see like more progressive, like Hassan, his group, everybody on Twitch would almost like on blast just be like, yeah, Kamala's not like good.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't really say go vote. They would just kind of say, yeah, Kamala's not good because she still supports Israel. And I feel like even though there are only a few people online who have those kinds of opinions, those who do tend to engulf their space. And I feel like their influence had something to do with at least some Democratic voters being hesitant in getting out there to vote.
Yeah. Again, that's another failure of her to detach herself from, you know, she couldn't bury Biden's ghost, to speak figuratively. Biden's legacy in Israel is not good, but also that also ties into, you know, miseducation, because if you believe like I'm not going to vote for Harris because she supports Israel, it's like Trump it's not your guy for that.
Yeah.
Like if you don't vote for Harris and Trump wins like he did, you know, Trump said to Netanyahu that he's giving him a blank check in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you didn't really beat Israel by not voting for Harris there.
Yeah, way to prove your point.
Yeah, exactly.
I have seen a kind of game theory floated around that some more like radical progressives are kind of excited that Trump has won because it kind of sets the stage for some kind of like revolution if it gets bad enough. And that's definitely, I know you might have some things to say about that maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's one thing I've seen floated is like if Trump wins and shit. My bad. Ted said I can cuss on this show, okay? So if I do it occasionally, my bad. But if shit does hit the fan, people will have what's the word? Plausible deniability to start taking things into their own hands and taking them more progressively. But I don't know what you guys would think if that's even like a real
My thing
sentiment
about revolutions in America is that if I think that there was ever going to be an armed revolution in America, unfortunately, I don't think it'd be the left that does it. I mean, the left in America is not known for, ideas of gun ownership for one, or, I feel like for a revolution to happen, there has to be some belief in action or violence. And, as terrible as that sounds, like the left doesn't seem capable of that, whereas the right has proven on multiple instances that they are more than willing to hurt people. I'm not just saying every Republican wants to hurt people, but I'm saying like the Jan 6 thing, for example, that shows a potential for overthrowing the government that the left has not shown.
For sure. Like the left is just like so determined to play by the rules, whatever that means. And like on its merits, that's a good thing. But when you're up against a party that distinctly doesn't, you're not going to have a chance.
Yeah. Also, I think that you're forgetting that nothing ever happens, for one. So,
Well, yeah, 100%. People keep saying, this is a weird time or whatever.
Right.
And I'm referring specifically to like far left, like people would call radical progressives. There's not as many of them.
That's
but
a pipe dream, I think.
I think so too. Yeah. But that's what's like the big thing online, at least. And this kind of fuels, the media cycle of hell that we have, where I'll be arguing again with my conservative family members, and they'll be like, "You just want communism. You just want the government to like control absolutely everything." And I'm like, no, that's just what happens to get reinforced online. But yeah, I feel like this larger, more true Democratic Party base has just kind of failed in the media sphere. And part of it's that we want to play by the rules, but we're also not willing to combat the Conservative Party right now. It's like the Democratic Party is coming in to do a fist fight when the enemy has a gun, or at the very least a machete, and we're not willing to go in with a machete of our own.
Yeah.
And that leads us to where we are now.
They don't appeal to the people enough, for sure. And they're also not willing to play to win. Like, the Democratic Party wants to hold to the party principles, not even the principles of the majority of the people, and they're going to lose. Yeah,
with that, do you think there's, like, policies that are good but just aren't popular? Specifically from, like, the Democratic side?
Now is your chance. You are on camera.
I would say that that for the Democratic Party, I feel like most of what they were doing was unpopular, but a lot of that was because of misinformation.
Sure.
Like, we didn't really know what they were doing.
Yeah.
All we heard was that it was bad from every news station, pretty much. I don't think that there's a lot of policy information going out, but I think that more often than not, there's policies that are popular but aren't platformed. Like, that's the main problem with the Democrat Party, is that there's things that the people want, but that we don't talk about. But for your point about ones that are good but not popular, I would say any kind of social welfare is almost incredibly unpopular in the United States, but they've proven to be good. Like, Social Security was unpopular, and now both parties are like always like, the other party wants to get rid of Social Security. It's like, neither of you wanted this when it happened, and now it's like a staple of America. And that's for anything, like Obamacare, for example. Your Republicans fought tooth and nail against it, and it was basically all of Obama's 8 years was spent trying to get the healthcare through. And like, that would be good if we could figure out how to figure out universal healthcare. Obviously, that would be a good thing. Who doesn't want universal healthcare? Yeah. The argument is more about the economy. But then once these things get through, historically in the United States, after a couple decades, everyone's like, I love this. This is great.
Right, yeah. You have any thoughts?
I don't know anything about specific policy that would be unpopular, but when I hear the word policy dropped, just the comparison of Trump's versus Kamala's campaign strategies regarding policy, like Kamala would have like, pro-choice, like housing help, startup business, first-time business owner help, and like there's like 3 bullet points that was supposed to like rally people. Versus Trump, and although this says something about his character maybe, but he would just say almost sentiments, concepts of a plan, you know, like close down the border, which has no real policy merits.
Right.
Yeah.
Tariff, which has policy merits, but it has pretty
not
crazy
good.
implications once you understand how it works. And I don't even know. Like those are the closest things to deportations. But like that's like a sentiment, that's like an idea, and the policy plan isn't there. But that obviously doesn't matter to his electorate.
They trust him.
Like
there's the thing that he was in for 4 years, and there was a lot of stuff that happened in those 4 years, and now they trust that he can do even more because he has the House, the Senate, the court, the popular vote. He has basically the country now.
He does.
So they trust him that he can do a lot more. And then also I think for a lot of people, there's the Project 2025 thing. He never says that that's what he wants, but a lot of people just have faith that he's going to do some of that.
Well, I saw a lot of people come out, mostly on like Twitter's, like, okay, now the election's over, yeah, we can say 2025 is the actual plan. Now, to me, I read that as satire, but I honestly don't know, and that scares me.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell.
So. I mean, with some of the people he's appointing, you never know.
Right, yeah. Matt Gaetz is
I mean, there's like all those scandals, which are crazy. I won't get into them, but.
Oh, did you have something? Because I'm about to move on.
I was going to go to something different, but we can go to.
Oh, okay. Here's a fun thought we can entertain. Is there a world where we're wrong and Donald Trump just truly is the better person?
Better person?
Candidate, president, whatever.
I think better person, definitely not. But better candidate, like I could see a world where he actually makes the economy a lot better. But my thing is, at what cost would he do that?
Sure.
Like, obviously, you can be great for the economy, and I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that Donald Trump, with lots of possibility, could do great things for the American economy. But is that what's most important to us? Like, will we abandon our international partnerships with, like, Ukraine, for example? Will we abandon these society obligations that we have? What is he going to do to the fabric, basically, of American society? And I think that's already changing, too. Sure. That's another topic, but... Yeah, like I could definitely see him being good for the economy. I can't see him being good for America.
Sure.
I mean, on paper, we're all like white men, so there's that. We will probably be okay, at least in the short term. But long term, like you said, there's being fundamental changes to the fabric of the system, which has gotten us this far. And sure, we've like made a lot of changes, but those have been mostly through the process, right?
Yeah.
And if we start changing the process, things start getting a little scary. Can a democracy vote itself out of existence?
Yeah.
We're seeing that tested right now. And Trump's not better. Just because it comes at the cost of other people. To me, I think like one of the foundations of the Democratic Party, at least like the center left, like traditional Democratic Party, is this idea of compassion. Like you said earlier, it's the Democratic judges who tend to give more rights, try to accommodate for more kinds of people. And I think that's kind of key to me. That's like a very strong moral foundation for me, and I just don't see that being demonstrated by Trump. I haven't seen it proven to me, and it just seems like anything that he does do just happens to overlap with being good for his base.
Yeah.
But he's doing it for himself, in my opinion. So yeah, that compassionate aspect being absent for me just eliminates the prospect of him being better in my eyes. What do you think?
My views is I truly think, and again, this is predicated on if he actually goes through with what he says. I think he'll be worse on almost every issue. Like even the economy. If he actually does the tariffs, the economy is going to collapse and burn. Like there's just no way that he actually makes it work. Unless, again, he does it in a way that's far different than what he says he's going to do. But it's Donald Trump. You don't know until he actually does it. I mean, it's a coin toss at this point. Okay. Yeah. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
I have kind of like a broad topic related to Trump I wanted to float by y'all. And you have a good amount of like historical like background, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This idea of populism, right? How do we get there? What does it mean for the American people that this is something that's popping up? Is it even new? How did this come to be?
We've definitely had populist presidents before. I mean, Andrew Jackson is probably the most popular example that I can throw out there. And the thing with populist presidents or populist politicians is that they're always going to be controversial.
Real quick, just for the sake of like the audience, can you define what populism means to you?
To me,
Yeah, like your understanding of things.
I would rather Logan do that.
Oh God.
Okay. Yeah, test your skills, political science major.
Okay. I guess when we talk about, obviously presidential candidates as an example, when we talk about like populist candidates, so like take Trump. Trump is popular. Well, Trump is favored because he's popular, not because he's good at what he does. So that's like the best example of the definition that I can come up with is, you like someone not because they're necessarily good at what they do, but because they're just, this certain figure that has some kind of appeal to you. Usually not in a good policy kind of way.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of it.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry for cutting you off. I was just, yeah.
My understanding is pretty similar to that. I would just say that populism is, a populist person is someone who appeals to the broadest base of people as possible. Donald Trump is wildly unpopular, but he's also wildly popular.
Right.
And he has basically a cult following. So that makes him populist. Andrew Jackson, same thing. Wildly popular, wildly unpopular. He was a people's person. He got into duels.
Yes.
Which we need to bring back. So yeah, that's what populism is. What was the original question?
Oh yeah, how did that end up in the U.S.? Is it any different today as it was beforehand?
Okay, how it came to the United States, I would say we had a myriad of reasons. Obama was pretty close to being a populist president, in my opinion, but he was also one of the most popular presidents that we've had in a long time. The thing is, when you have a candidate like Obama who does a lot of things, and he was different from Democratic candidates we had before. I think that was one of the shifts in politics, in American politics, is that it's going to bring in, the other side is also going to respond to that. That's just how politics works, or it should work. We didn't see that in the last election where the Democratic Party just didn't change at all. But normally, if one side of the spectrum changes, the other shifts to adapt for that. But I would say that this all started in 2001 with 9/11 and the invasion of Afghanistan, everything that happened with that, and then the recession in '08. All of this, I would say, has contributed to this alienation in the American public, how they feel like politics doesn't represent them. Then Donald Trump comes down the escalator famously, and he basically frames himself as a people person, a person of the American people. He represents America. I mean, he's a billionaire, and everything he's done in his career has shown that he doesn't. But it's the fact that he's not a politics person, or he wasn't in 2016. He's not a politician. That's what people were looking for. They're looking for someone who hasn't been in politics their whole life. They're looking for someone who frames themselves as this. I'm going to do what you want, even if it's unpopular. I'm going to drain the swamp. I'm going to reshape America, and the implications of that don't just stretch across America. America's framed itself as like the bastion of democracy pretty much for the West. And so if you look at what's happening in Canada and what's happening in Europe, there's that wave of populism since 2016 that's like swept over. Like the French elections recently, the far-right party under Le Pen almost won that election.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, and like what you say, like Trump's not a politician. That was like his main priority. And then in 2020, he got defeated by a career politician.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
a guy that's been in politics longer than pretty much anyone else in the country. So yeah, it's a funny comparison. Did that kind of answer your question? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I guess I just like historically. Granted, I know far less about history than either of you. This idea of populism often corresponds with like fascists or authoritarian governments. And I was wondering how adjacent our current populism around Trump is to those kinds of governments being formed in the past. Granted, to one extent, like we're seeing, Trump's putting a lot of specific people in high places to ensure that what he wants to do gets done, at least to the extent that he can do it. I don't know if he's capable of doing it. But, the guardrails have held up until now. And so I'm curious how similar this process is looking to other kinds of populist into authoritarian governments historically.
I mean, definitely from an American perspective, we're in very uncharted territory. We don't really know what's going on. And like we can look to history, we can look to other countries, but those are obviously aren't perfect examples.
Yeah.
We're not going to know until it gets here.
Mhm.
That's just kind of my broad take.
I would agree with that. I would also think that, like, I'm not worried about the American democracy being overthrown. I'm worried about, our societal standards being changed to a point where, the trust has gone down even further, or
Right.
we don't respect each other anymore. That's the main thing that I'm worried about with Donald Trump being in office, and also the fact that he's so divisive. I mean, he has all those cases, I won't get into them, but those scandals in those cases, and the fact that he beat both of the times he's won an election, he's ran against a woman, is not going to be helpful for the fabric of society that we have today.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's already like being shown. I'm not sure if you've seen, like, all over Twitter, there's the "Your Body, My Choice." And there's like students being suspended because they're chasing girls around, like shouting "Your Body, My Choice" at them in like middle
You haven't
schools.
heard of this?
No,
Yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah, and this
Stay
is
away from Twitter.
This is like, I feel like people like that feel emboldened by Donald Trump being who he is, and being able to say all these things. They feel emboldened that now he's won, they can say these things too. They can, it's like mask off, and so that's what I'm worried about more than anything. I'm not worried about an authoritarian regime, so to speak, because I think that there was that bill that was shut down like last night, I think, which pretty much said that he can't do whatever he wants. I don't remember the number or the specific wording, so I'm not going to pretend to. But I think if you look that up afterwards, you'll see that. So I'm not really worried about our democracy being overthrown overnight, basically, by Donald Trump. I'm more worried what his implications have for the people of America.
The precedent it sets. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like with what you're saying, what it means for like the quality of the people. Like that's not a new thing. Even leading up to the 2016 election, like the whole grab him by the
Yeah.
that whole thing, like, and he still won.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Any more thoughts on that before we move on?
No.
Okay. So my final point is going to be kind of a fun one. What do you guys think the Republican Party will look like post-Trump? Where either he like dies in office because he's an old man, or he finishes his term and just kind of disappears.
I have a rough game theory, but I want you to go first.
Okay. I think that the Republican Party has kind of shaped into the Trumpist Party.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw this. There were 7 Republicans that voted to impeach Trump, and only 2 of them remained. 5 of them resigned. I think that the Republican Party figured out what the American people will vote for. They figured out how to mobilize people, and they shifted to that. And that's not going to change in 4 years. If anything, we'll get even further. I mean, J.D. Vance as a vice president pick is insane to me, because that is, far-right populism in its purest form is J.D. Vance. Then we have the Matt Gaetz pick, which was like, last night, I think it was?
Yeah.
Something like that. Marco Rubio. All these Republicans that aren't just Republicans, they're Donald Trump Republicans.
Yeah.
And he even said, like, I will not be inviting back Nikki Haley to my administration. So I think in 4 years, we'll see, like, J.D. Vance and DeSantis run against each other. Vivek, too. We'll see this. I think that the Republican Party has figured out that right-wing populism is the future of their party, and they're going to run with that.
Do you really think they can like match the same energy of as Trump and populism? Just like not give a crap and go up there, say whatever they want, and not have any like repercussions? Because like we saw like for Arizona as an example, Carrie Lake lost.
Oh yeah, by a lot.
That to me says that Trump's personality only works for Trump. So my question is, do you think that they can actually replicate that in 2028 or whatever, and actually like do it effectively?
I mean, DeSantis is like a robot, and he won Florida, and he's turned it into his own like little fiefdom. Even Donald Trump has said that lots of DeSantis's policies are like beyond the pale of what should be enacted. Like Donald Trump said, the Florida abortion ban is extreme. That's Donald Trump saying that. So the fact that DeSantis got elected in Florida, which used to be a swing state, by the way,
Right.
Up until not too long ago, that tells me that even if they don't have his personality, they can still win. I think Carrie Lake suffers from the fact that, one, she's a woman running for political office in America, and 2, like she lost the governorship already, and so people should just see her as a losing candidate. And then 3, like she's just an unlikable person. Like she was a radio personality, so it's not that she doesn't have the charisma. She does. She's just like not a very likable human being.
She's a little crazy.
Yeah.
But actually, she didn't lose the governorship. She said she didn't lose.
Oh,
she didn't
my
lose.
fault.
Yeah.
I surrender.
Not real. Yeah, that basically that's basically what I was thinking. Just this idea of like a Trump dynasty of sorts. I've even seen it floated that like Trump Jr. will run maybe. Barron. I feel bad for Barron. I've heard some things that like he gets like.
Did you see that he said like he was having a dinner party and a reporter said that he was raised on a silver spoon and he was like, I only eat off of gold. It's like, this kid is evil.
Well, yeah. Like I'll grant, like he's part of like the Trump family, what that produces. But you know, like I imagine for like any like president's kids, like that's got to be really stressful, especially if it's someone as divisive as Trump. Even if I don't, you know, like what Barron stands for or whatever, but. Back to what I was saying, I've heard people float like, you know, Trump Jr. running. J.D. Vance is scary to me because not only does he have a special kind of charisma that I think is like inherent to him, but he's also young and a lot of, you know, energy that I think people, even if it's not Trump, they'll see that youth and that energy and be like, yes, especially if he's like successful in this term with Trump.
What kind of charisma do you think J.D. Vance has besides like rizzing up furniture?
He's a good speaker. He's a very good speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the VP debate.
Yeah, the VP debate.
Yeah, he's very like he was respectful to moderators. Did he answer a single question? No, but he gives this idea like if I was like independent or whatever, and I heard him speaking, I'd be like, wow, this guy's like he's smart. He seems respectful. I'm an American. I like those values. Maybe I'll go for him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know people are willing to vote for Trump and they see somebody who they think is perceivable as being more respectful, then that might harden his role in the party moving forward a little harder for me.
So I have a different. I disagree. I think the Republican Party is just going to be very dissected and like they're not going to win like hardly anything. My reason for that is if you look at like the House during the last 3 or 4 years and how much of a mess it's been. And now there's more of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just don't see them actually coming together and being productive. Like this last Congress has been the least productive in like all of American history.
Sure.
And that's when Republicans held a majority in one section and were only down by like 2 seats in the other. So I think post-Trump, they're like you said, I think Vivek could run, Vance could run, DeSantis could run. I think all these people are going to pull away from the actual like kind of majority that surrounds the party itself, and it's just going to be very fragmented. I think the only way the Republican Party can somehow avoid that is if Trump spends like half the time in office building up some next candidate in 2028.
I think that's why he picked Vance, to be completely honest. Sure. And I think Vance will see this. He'll start jockeying, like he'll start getting donations, he'll start holding his own rallies and doing his own thing. I mean, his like going door-to-door stuff didn't really work out for him, and like trying to portray himself as like just a regular guy.
What was it? He wasn't let in like the donut shop or something?
Exactly. Or he was like, do you work here? How are you? Awesome. Do you work here? How are you? Awesome. So that didn't really work. But like the speaker thing, I hadn't thought about that. He is a good debater. I think that by picking a vice president when it's your last term, you're setting that person up for maybe even not presidency, but definitely some political position in the future. I think we'll see Vance jockeying for that.
I think another contributing factor that kind of makes it dubious for me whether or not the Trump party can win without Trump is still today how fragmented our party is. And I don't even know what we do about that. If that's like a top-down thing,
4 years.
A bottom-up thing. Like I guess maybe this is like a, you know, is America doomed, you know, podcast. This is a question I could ask you guys: is what could, you know, Democratic Party, or like people who are like left-leaning do to do a better job 4 years from now?
I think that they have to frame themselves as left-wing populist as they can without, you know, being awful. I think Bernie Sanders has already started to try to like push the Democratic Party that way. I mean, I'm not sure if you saw his like 2-page letter afterwards. Where,
I saw a little bit of it.
Yeah, he was like roasting the hell out of the Democratic Party, saying that they don't appeal to the people. That's what they need more of. Obviously, I think Bernie Sanders is like old as dirt, so probably not him. But we need more Democrat politicians, even if they don't believe it, to be honest, because lots of Republican politicians probably don't believe half the things that they say, but they're saying it to be on Trump's side because they know it can help them win. We need more of that from the Democratic Party. They need to start playing to win.
But substance to back it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully. Could you imagine the President AOC? That'd be legendary for all the wrong reasons.
2040, here it comes.
Yeah, she is young, isn't she?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think these next 4 years, depending on how bad it is, assuming it will be, because I think it will be, I think it'll really embolden Democrats to like, we'll come together and say, okay, we need to get our crap figured out and actually, organize, be united, and, appeal to the people, as you said. So I think, assuming we survive the next 4 years, I think we will be very, very well set up for 2028.
Mm-hmm.
Just barring, like, almost everything.
Yeah.
So we're not doomed, is what you think.
Well, that's why I said if we survive the next 4 years.
Yeah. Are we doomed? I don't think we as a people are, but I think that some systems, some traditions that have kind of been integral to the idea of what it means to be American are being threatened right now.
Yeah, I mean, we just elected a felon.
Yeah, that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's just a true fact.
Yeah.
Like the only other one who
Criminal
had
rights.
like.
Woo. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. The only other president who had some weird criminal things going on stepped down because he didn't have this assumption.
Okay, well, only other is
Well, okay. Yeah, that's true. You know what I'm talking about, Nixon.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, are we doomed? Time will tell. Are there things we can do to avoid being doomed? I think that's the question that I'm uncertain about. But they probably exist. We just have to talk to each other and just be in tune with the people, in tune with each other, and hopefully start voting people in who are in tune with the people as well.
Yeah, we'll see in 2 years if the Democrats have figured anything out whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah, day one of his presidency, see what happens.
See how many wars stop.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of people that
He'll be a dictator day one.
day one.
Day
no,
one.
We'll see about that. If he is, then this podcast should probably not be uploaded.
Oh no, this podcast
We get-
we're botting
we get door
to get
knocked.
more views.
Yeah.
Okay, but
No, I'm gonna be like seconds away from hitting publish, and like the Air Force is gonna call me like, "Hey, buddy."
it's a nice IP address you have there. It's a good address.
It's like, you've been drafted to Ukraine. Oh, cool.
Oh, we don't have to worry about that. Trump's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
stop the
Yeah,
war.
yeah.
So
In 24 hours.
Oh, yeah, one phone call.
Right. That Elon Musk was on as well, apparently.
Yeah.
God. Doge is real. That's
Doge
crazy.
is real.
So if we don't want to be doomed, lock in.
Yeah.
I'm so
I mean,
locked in right now.
I'm locked in. But you're gonna be a lawyer, right? Is
yeah.
the goal?
Yeah.
Have you figured out where you're going yet?
Into politics.
Into
one way-
politics.
One way or another.
President right here.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'm depending on where things go for me, it's either gonna be professor, politician, or something in between, whatever that looks like. But I think we're all locking in.
Yeah.
It's time.
We're the future of America.
We're waking up to the issues of the world. Hopefully we don't make things worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I got. That was an amazing conversation. You
Yeah.
guys have anything else?
Was that a Destiny reference?
What are you talking about?
Anything else? The podcast.
Oh, no. I don't.
I'm sorry. I'm cooked, guys.
I was going to do that when you said that we just have to talk to each other. I was going to be like, talk to us.
That would have been so good. That would have been so good.
Is that still a top 3 podcast? There's no way it's
If
still
it is, we are doomed.
Oh, that's true.
You don't like the talk to a podcast?
I haven't even seen the original clip.
I think your next podcast, you should just watch it.
You think?
Yeah.
Better yet, we should invite her on.
Yes. She'll come on. Of course.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, thank you, Robert,
Yes,
for
thank
coming
you.
on. I really appreciate you coming by. Definitely knows a lot more than me, and he's more adjacent to your realm. So really insightful. Really happy to have had you on.
Yeah, I am the smartest guy in the world, so.
Based
Yeah.
and epic.
And
Amen.
epic.
But yeah, thank you guys for watching Discourse Debrief episode 8. It's still crazy that we've gone this far. To think at the start of the semester, we were just like, hey, you want to do a recording and see what happens? And now we're here. But we appreciate you guys being here. If we don't want America to be doomed, whether you're conservative, whether you're Democrat, talk to people. Everybody feels and they have reasons for doing things, and it's through communication that we're gonna work together. So thank you for taking the time to watch us. I've been Peyton,
Logan
and this has been the Discourse Debrief.
And Robert.
and Rob.
And Robert. And Robert.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.